Aloha and welcome. I'm Geralyn St Joseph, and you are watching Mystery, Mystics, and Metaphysics, along with Relationship Empowerment. I had to think a minute because I just changed the name of that one. I am Geralyn St Joseph. I will be your host. I am an intuitive relationship coach, and I am here today with the insanely talented McDowell Graham. Hello, McDowell. How are you today?
That was very nice. It was worth me paying you $5 to say something nice. I knew you would, so thank you.
Yeah, that's what happens when you know each other for a long time. You can get away with bribing someone to say something good.
Absolutely.
So we're here today to talk about when shit happens, let shift happens. What does that mean and where are we getting this from? Well, McDowell is a therapeutic storyteller. We're going to talk about what that means too, if you've never heard of that before. She is unique in her field and she is unique, period. I don't think I've ever met a person who is more, I would say, capable of getting to the meat of the matter without having the person that they're talking to run in the other direction because they don't like what they're hearing. Everything comes out in a very personable, very often funny way. And I'll let McDowell talk a little bit about how she got started and what this means for you if you want to work with her. So, McDowell, we're here today to talk about when shit happens, let shift happen. What does that mean?
So basically, what that means is about perception,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that perception drives our reality. How we perceive our world around us dictates how we navigate our daily lives. When shit happens, that is the bad stuff. And we'll talk about what that looks like and what we can do about it. What we can do is try to shift our perspective of the event, of the thing that's happening that's causing us fear, so that we can feel the fear and still move forward, keep moving forward, do what we have to do, what I call feeling the fear and doing it anyways. That's the heart of perception when it comes to this.
Excellent. Excellent. So, today we're going to be talking about one of your books.
Yep.
Do you know how many books you have out so far?
I have 5 out, and I will share with your listeners today that Geralyn actually was a key contributor to my 5th book. It's called The World is More Than We Know. They're all available on Amazon. We'll show you where that is a little bit later. But this is how it works for me. The universe sends me an experience. I'm very lucky. My team in spirit puts me in a situation with an experience, an event, an occurrence, a happening that I'm supposed to learn something from so I can have a frame of reference to share with people. This is what I've learned. You might get something out of this as well. For my 5th book, then the experience was, I'll make it brief. I had dinner with a friend who I had followed her on Facebook for a very long time. And she had this adorable golden retriever. And I mean, golden retrievers are adorable anyways, but I mean, this one was calendar worthy, pin-up worthy. And for years, she'd put all these adorable little pictures up of her dog in these costumes and these cute little cherub. You know the drill. You've seen it on Facebook. Adorable. Now I know for her dog was everything. We're having dinner, and she shares with me she thinks her dog is not well. And I think the dog was pretty advanced in years at that point, and she was concerned that at some point she would have to probably euthanize her dog. I, in all innocence, honestly shared with her, but you're going to see her after she passes. Because for me, my dogs who have passed are so obvious. I fall over them in the house, I trip over them. They make themselves known, they bark, they bump the bed. It never occurred to me that everybody didn't see that, ever. And she actually said back to me, well, that's just you, McDowell. You're lucky. I'll never be able to see my dog. And I thought, wait a minute.
Aw.
What do you mean? You honestly believe you will never see your dog? And that experience led me to think, is that true? For me, it was, is it nature? I called it this. Is it nature? Geralyn's an intuitive. She was born that way. Is it nurture? I asked her and several other psychics who shared in that book, is it nurture? And they said, sure, you can learn it. And then I said, or is it when pigs fly? That really is. I am not, when pigs fly, that's when I'll be able to hear my dog and see my dog in spirit. So the experience was, is that true? And is it true? I asked many people, psychics, and then just regular guys, do you believe that the world is more than we know? And if it is, what does that mean for you? And that's how all of my books come to me, including the one we're going to talk about today. I've been given an experience. I'm supposed to learn something from it. From that lesson, I ask a lot of other people, what'd you learn? If you had a similar experience, what can we share with others to make, if they experience it, make it a little more meaningful?
So this is October when we're filming this, shortly before Halloween. So I'm going to bring in the ghost aspect of things. And I think for a lot of people, what happens, especially particularly with pets, is you feel their presence rather than seeing them or tripping over them. I know for myself, it's a sense of like the dog jumping in the bed and you can feel, the bed go under. And being who we are, because we know how to feel the essence of what's around us, we're not afraid of that. Whereas I think a lot of people will push away those kind of experiences out of fear because they don't know what it is. They don't recognize it for what it is. So your book, I think, can help a lot of people in feeling more comfortable with the experiences and recognizing that it is natural. We call it supernatural, but I really believe and have felt my whole life that these things are natural.
Exactly. And I will say the value of doing the work that I do and being able to share that with others, what we talked about earlier, a shift in perception, subtle. I went on a hike last week with a dear friend who she knows that I do all this, what I call the woo stuff, that she's known me for many years and is just used to that. But she shared something very interesting with me, and I was so pleased when she said it. She said, I've been thinking about what you said about seeing our dearly beloved past pets. She said, I'm down in the basement and I keep seeing a shadow. And for the longest time, I dismissed it. And she said, and now I've decided that it's my cat. You'll laugh about this. My last name is Graham. Her cat's name was Graham. I know. Talk about synchronicity. But I told her, you have no idea how pleased that makes me, because now she feels very comforted because she's decided to believe that the shadow that she sees, and that's how most of us experience it. That thing that you go out of the corner of your eye, how many times have people said that? I saw something out of the corner of my eye. And this is what I always tell people. If it quacks like a duck, walks, all that, it's a duck. If you believe you saw your Aunt Betty in spirit, you saw your Aunt Betty in spirit, and no one is going to be able to tell you otherwise. And you can choose to see that as the valuable thing that it is. And she has decided that shadow, it's only certain times. And she said, and now that I'm paying attention to it, I can feel that this is Graham. My work is done. That's the point of my books. That's the point of kind of what we're going to talk about today too, about feeling the fear and doing it anyways. It no longer scares her. Now she's very comforted by it. And now she's learned what most of us do once we kind of get the hang of this. Now, of course, she's talking to him. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
So what made you decide to, like, how did you come up with the term of a therapeutic storyteller? And what made you decide to move into your business? And let's talk about the name of your business once you tell
Okay.
us about therapeutic storytelling.
Okay. Well, the only reason Geralyn is saying that is because she gave me the name of my business. Okay. So it's a plug for her. But so the name of my business is Cracks in Consciousness. All one word, cracksandconsciousness.com. You can go out there and take a look at what I've got there, including the links to all of my books. And so this is how it came about. Geralyn and I have known each other for a long time. And the first reading I ever got from her was in Hawaii when she was still living there and my family was there. And we met a few times and she said to me, we were trying to figure out what can I do? Because here's the thing, I'm not Geralyn. I don't have a dog and pony show. Not that what she does is a dog and pony show, but I don't
Wish I
talk to
had a
other
pony.
people. I know, think about that. I don't have that. I don't talk to other people's dead people. I talk to my own. That's not where my talents or my gifts lie. So we were trying to figure out, so what can you do? I don't know. Let's think about this. And so she said, well, how about Reiki? I I do have a Reiki master certificate, but we both went, nah, that doesn't sound right. How about we tried a few things and we both went, how about energy healer? Well, if I could heal energy, would I be sitting here in front of you? That doesn't sound right either. Well, how about, she said, I'll tell you what happens every time you and I get together. It's kind of like, first of all, you sit down and all my chakras line up. And then it's kind of like you open up cracks in my consciousness and make me think about things in a new way. And we went, bingo, there it is. Oh, that's what I do. So if you look at the five clairs, those senses, I am claircognizant. I just kind of know stuff. Now, is the universe talking in my ear like it does with, say, Geralyn or some other people, or John Edward? No, it's just I kind of know stuff. I don't know why, and that's why I mentioned the universe sends me experiences because it's something I need to know. So this is how we can learn it together. Now, therapeutic storytelling actually has been around for a very long time. And I am a writer, but my
Very good
emphasis,
one, I might say.
thank you very much. And by the way, for those of you who are listening, my books, you can actually, the point to the book is I have a book, my series is Examine, Envision, Emerge. And each book you can literally read in an afternoon because the idea is I want you to think. And every book has a series of Examine, Envision, Emerge exercises, worksheets you fill out, things that you can think about. So it literally is in a hurry because I want you to get the information in a hurry and then take it away with you and think about it. It's the idea. Now, I've always been a storyteller since as long as I can remember. That's all I wanted to do. But here's the point to therapeutic storytelling. I have it in front of me. I'm going to read this to you so, because I want to get it right so you truly get it. So, and that is, it's also called healing storyteller, and it uses creative metaphors, our stories and other people's stories to tell individual ways to address challenging experiences, offer possible solutions, and provide the opportunity for insight and reflection. So this is the way those of us who are in this work describe it. It's more than just a story. There's a couple of ways you can look at it. A story can move you. A therapeutic story moves you to action. A story can transform your perspective. A therapeutic story can heal your perspective and transform your life. A story can transport you to another world for a while. A therapeutic story can help you create another world for yourself where you can live forever. That's therapeutic storytelling.
That's awesome. That's a great description.
Yeah. And the fact is that I've always believed this. everybody has a story to tell, and everybody wants a chance to tell it, don't we? We all have a story that we want to tell. My opportunity then is, here's my experience that the universe sends me, and now I get to talk to other people who'd like to share their story along the same line. I had that experience. Yes, I can see my pets. What we're going to talk about today, about the book that we're going to focus on today, is yes, I had that event happen to me, and I was paralyzed with fear as a result of it. And now we're going to talk about together, here's some solutions that got me past it so I could keep moving forward.
So one more thing about your business. How do you offer your services? Like, what does that look like? And we know that people can go find you at cracksinconsciousness.com and look you up on Amazon and see your author page and all that fun stuff. But what does that look like? Like, how do people work with you? Are you just, doing the books? Are you doing webinars? Are you a speaker? Are you like, how does this work?
Yeah, all those things. Yes, I'm doing books. Every month, what I'll say is, we're going to talk about that in a minute. I do a newsletter. Every month I pick a theme. And the theme, then I feature one of my books in the Examine, Envision, Emerge series. And then I also do a webinar every month on the theme that I've picked for that month. I also do intuitive mentoring for people who are kind of looking for, what's the point to a mentor? It's that person who's a little farther along the path than you are. And what helps about working with someone who's a little farther along the path is that they can bring their experiences to you and say, here's what happened for me. This might work for you. The intuitive part is because I am claircognizant. The universe kind of helps me with knowing what I need to share with somebody. I also, believe it or not, I do accountability coaching. I'm really good at making sure people who have decided to set their minds to do something, I can help you finish that as well. Also, I do, believe it or not, publishing, editing services, writing services for people in our line of work. People in our line of work who want to share their stories. The most important thing is you have to find somebody who can make sure that it's your story that the person is going to hear, not mine. You have to understand how the person has written something. For example, my books. With my books, I literally, once the universe gives me the experience and I go, oh, I got it, I sit down and they tell me what to write. I wrote my first 4 books in 6 months. That's how fast I get it. They just tell me what to write. I'm so lucky that it works that way, and out it comes. Now, if I hand that over to an editor or book publisher who doesn't understand that that's how it came through, they're going to edit it from the perspective of what we typically see from an edited book. That experience that happened for me is not going to come through. How do I keep my paws on it to make sure that that person's experience is being shared in the way that they got it? And the most that I can do is just make sure that it kind of meets some standards. That's all.
It's
And then,
keeping it in their voice, but
absolutely,
getting rid of all the right, and
right.
making it readable. I've tried to do this for other practitioners also, and some practitioners are very eloquent, like yourself, and other practitioners are just, wow,
All
how
over
did
the
you
map.
graduate high school? You
Yeah, because
don't
it's
know
how they got
English.
it. Yeah, it's how they got it too. How they're sharing it forward is, now how much of that do I want to take your voice out and your message out? Because of Steve Pressfield in his book, the War of Art, he says we are all agents of the mystery. And if you're an agent of the mystery, then how do I make sure that your mystery is coming through and it's not me?
But it's got to be clear, and
Yeah,
people need to be able, as a whole, to read it and understand it. So basically, as an editor, you're more of a proofreader. The editor makes sure that things flow. The
right,
proofreader makes sure that things are spelled correctly so that
right,
we're all on the same page.
right, right.
So just to
Because we laugh about that, but I know anybody who's listening, you may not be a professional proofreader. You don't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you picked up a newspaper article or a magazine or a book or something and something caught your eye? It's either a repeated word, or maybe you're a guy who looks at punctuation, whatever it might be. Something tripped you up. I call it picking up the red pen. I'd grab one. I have one to my left, but it's too far away. As soon as you pick up the red pen, which is what we do in line editing, you're starting to question the information. The second that something stops you, even if you don't know what it is, you're now going to think all the rest of the material is suspect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to do, is we try to eliminate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's move on to what we're talking about today, which is your book, Doing the Thing You Think That You Cannot Do. And your theme for this month was fear. I read your newsletter every month, which I do not do that with most things. And I don't read things very thoroughly
Well,
because I
short too. I try to make it short.
yeah, but it's very interesting and your sense of humor comes through. And I like that about your books and your writing in general is that they're not heavy. Even though the subject is heavy, you make it digestible. And I feel like that is very important for people to be able to really learn. And what I was hearing when you were talking about the different ways that you present the material is that there's different ways of learning. You learn through reading, you might learn through writing, you might learn through auditory. And what you do is you're offering all of these different ways to learn the material by giving a webinar, by having your YouTube channel, by writing books, by doing one on one coaching. So if people learn best from reading, they have the books. If they learn the best by doing, they have the worksheets. And by working with you, like I know a lot of people that I know work best if they have a teacher, like who's actually speaking to them.
Right.
And you do that through your webinar. So you're any way that you can learn, McDowell can help you. McDowell's information is there in any way that you can take it in and actually process it. Or you might want to use all of them to see what fits best with you. I highly recommend the newsletter and the webinars because they're always delightful. There's always something there. So
Yeah.
take it
We try
away,
to
McDowell.
So I try really hard, and I appreciate that because of my professional life. I have spent many years as a trainer, and if it's one thing I've learned, it's that we all do learn differently. How we digest information is very different. And one thing you'll probably notice here is that I I have I've heard from people that my sentence structure, now Geralyn's read my books before, believe me, they're easy to get through. That's the idea. But my sentence structure as a public speaker, you'll notice I pause a lot. And the reason I pause a lot is because I can get on a conversation with how it's coming to me, how the information is that I want to share, not take a breath. You're never going to be able to catch up with me. And somebody once told me, McDowell, I can't keep up because there's too many things in your sentence. It's not you're talking too fast, but it's so much there. You got to stop. So I've learned as a trainer, where do we put those significant pauses? How do we let people catch up with us? Hear what I'm saying? Or like you said, some people need to give me something to look at. Some people are better if they hear me talking. Some people are better. I need to read it by myself and kind of think about it for a while. I think for me, one of the important things is, and Geralyn, you actually mentioned this once in one of my books. What you're hearing me talk like is exactly what my books sound like. I mean, you're not going to get frou-frou language and all the rest of it. Exactly what I'm talking to you about today and how I'm sharing it is exactly what you're going to get over in the book. I want to make it easy for you, or my webinars. Let's try to make it easy for you to get the information you need in the pace that you need it. Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm going to start with something that happened yesterday. True story. I'm a storyteller. I'm going to tell you something that happened yesterday. And it's this. I'm going to meet a friend for coffee. We decided to go to a place we've never been before. She and I have been meeting for coffee for 100 years. This is the first time we've decided to go to this new place. So I get to the intersection of where the coffee shop is, there is smoke billowing out from I don't know what in the road. There has to be 6 of those really big fire engines, at least a dozen cop cars. There's lights going everywhere. There's chaos going everywhere. And I'm thinking, I can't see what it is, but I think it's pretty bad. So now we do decide that we are going to sit in that cafe at that corner, but we made sure that we weren't looking out the windows because I don't want to watch what's happening. And then I said to her, this is how the universe works for me. I said, do you know, I'm meeting with people tomorrow to talk about life event planning in the face of fear. And the sheer coincidence of what's unfolding in front of us is that, think about this, in the moment that accident occurred, for everyone involved, in a nanosecond, their lives have changed and will never be the same. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, as Geralyn mentioned, I picked fear as my topic for October. No surprise, because nothing says fear like Halloween. It's haunted houses. It's things that go bump in the night. It's the stories that scare the bejesus out of us. Now, it goes without saying that fear usually is at the heart of the best scary stories. But as much as I like a scary story as a therapeutic storyteller, it's my job to show people how to feel the fear, not be paralyzed by it, and how to take action to get to the other side. And again, we mentioned this, it's all about that subtle shift in perception. Sometimes that's an opening of the mind. Sometimes it's an intentional pause and reset that allows us to see new possibilities. And there is no better way to experience the value of subtle shifts than in knowing that when shit happens, we need to let shift happen. Now, that's why I chose, since my theme was fear, I chose my book, Doing the Thing You Think You Cannot Do. And the subtitle for that book is How to Prepare for All of the Unforeseen, Unexpected, Inevitable Events that Life Can Throw at Us. I refer to this book as the holy shit book, as in, holy shit, what am I going to do now? Because this book is about coping with life events before the event occurs, and we are unable to cope at all. It's a book of answers to that gut-wrenching question, what the hell am I going to do now? I got the book from a quote. The title of the book came from a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. I'm going to read it because it's so wonderful, and it set the stage for everything about this book, my experiences, and what we're going to talk about today. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by experience in which you look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Now, one time or another, each one of us has asked ourselves that gut-wrenching question, what the hell am I going to do now? Now, we've heard some news, read a story that made us just go, oh my God, I have no idea what I would do if that happened to me. Maybe we know someone who's been diagnosed with cancer. Maybe we know someone whose loved one has passed away unexpectedly, someone who's just been laid off, or someone whose spouse has just left them with no warning, and we've thought, what would I do if that were me? And then we put it out of our minds because it hasn't happened, and with luck, it never will. And then one day, we get the phone call. We hear the diagnosis. We watch our spouse drag a suitcase down the stair and out the door, and in that instant, our life changes and will never be the same. Now, the tricky part to life events is that the event often requires us to make informed decisions at a time when we are emotionally incapable of doing so. And we're consumed by fear. We're unable to act quickly or decisively. In some cases, you can't even think straight. But action and clear-headedness are essential to handling our fears successfully. And without some kind of planning, we often make decisions or take actions that have disastrous results. So how do we solve this dilemma? How do we feel the fear and still be able to do something about it to get to the other side? So, of course, as a storyteller, I'm going to share with you two experiences that I had where I ultimately learned about the value of life event planning in the face of fear. So, first one was, of course, many years ago, my now ex-husband asked me for a divorce. For me, it truly was out of the blue. Now, I felt, of course, all the loss and hurt that comes when someone you love decides they no longer be with you. But here's another feeling I had that I was completely unprepared for. I was absolutely overwhelmed with paralyzing fear. I realized with dread, and I have to say, some shame, that I had been in what I call passenger mode. In other words, for the last 16 years, I wasn't in the driver's seat of my own life. I had let someone else take care of a lot of things. And now there were a number of things that I had no idea how to take care of because my husband had done it all. I didn't know how to drive the riding lawnmower. I didn't know how to clean out the spot. I didn't know where our cars were getting serviced. I didn't even know where the water main was in my house. And it also occurred to me that in all those years, I had never even taken the time to get to know my neighbors. And now it's not like I don't know how to do things. I know how to do a lot of things. I was the primary breadwinner. I managed all of our money. I did all of our investments. I did our tax returns. I know what I'm doing. But now I'm about to be left alone in an aging house on 5 acres of land, 15 minutes from the nearest town, without a clue as to how to take care of it, and without knowing anyone well enough nearby to ask for help. Now, here's the second experience that I had. It was with my soulmate. For 10 years, I shared my life with the love of my life, a long-haired Czechoslovakian shepherd named Finn Konalani. His call name was Kona. Now, taking care of Kona and giving him the best quality of life I possibly could gave my life absolute meaning, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. And in 2008, Kona was diagnosed with a life-threatening condition. It had no cure. Life expectancy for dogs with Kona's condition were bleak at best. One specialist told me the longest any of the dogs in his practice lived was 3 weeks. Now, the prognosis was so poor, my own regular vet, knowing what Kona meant to me, and I mean, when I say soulmate, Kona and I could speak telepathically. It's the only pet I've ever had I could do that with. He was my soulmate. My vet knows how much Kona means to me, so he called me. And he tried to prepare me for what would probably be Kona's imminent death. He walked me through all the steps I needed to take in the coming weeks. Everything from, I have to keep him absolutely quiet. He can't have any excitement. What am I going to do? He said, I'm going to walk you through what happens when Kona has a heart attack, when he's on a walk with you or outside, which apparently is how dogs with this condition die. So to say I was devastated doesn't come close to describing how I felt. And I was filled with absolute fear whenever I even thought about Kona running up and down the basement stairs, let alone what I was going to do in my life without Kona in my life any longer. So needless to say, I barely heard a word that the vet was telling me. I cried for 2 solid days, but I had decisions to make. How was I going to decide anything when all I could feel was fear? So from those 2 experiences that I had, I learned 2 things at the heart of feeling the fear and doing it anyways. The first one is there are steps that we can take in advance to prepare for or cope with any life event that make up our lives. Everything from the unexpected, like divorce, loss of a job, terminal illness, to the anticipated or inevitable, like death and taxes. Then the second thing I learned was that if we change our perception of the event in order to find solutions that might or will mitigate the fear, if not remove it altogether, we can keep moving forward. And once you've had the experience of doing the thing you think you cannot do, you can face anything and you can survive it. Okay, so what I want to do now is look at what I mean by life event and life event planning. So I'm going to give you some context so that we can continue on with the next part of this discussion. So I'm about to share a slide. Geralyn, you want to weigh in on anything here so far, what we've been sharing?
My cat is on her way. She oh, she's behind the computer. What are you doing, baby? Don't hit that. I love you. Yes, I do. So I believe that animals are purer spirits than we are, simply because even though, yes, a cat can have an attitude and certain animals definitely can do things out of spite, for the most part, an animal is acting out of a sense of survival and often a sense of affection. And I believe that most of our pets will choose us somehow. I don't know if you saw, oh, what was it called? A Dog's Life, the
I
original.
didn't.
Oh
I
my God.
didn't.
I went to go see that by myself. And
I was
just
a
as
little concerned about anything that's about, if it's not,
it was
having,
beautiful. It was a
was it? Okay,
beautiful
that's why
story.
I didn't go, because I was very concerned about, I can't deal with one more dog thing.
But I went by myself and I was crying in the theater, and so was everybody, because it was about a dog, from the dog's point of view, and like the reincarnation of the dog, and each time the difference in his life, and that he kind of learned from these things, but he never forgot the old things. So
Yeah.
I feel like that was a good message for us, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, about moving through trauma and finding what you can from it and moving forward. Um, but I wholeheartedly support everything that you're saying. And the reason why I wasn't interrupting you is because I love to listen to you talk.
And I
I'm
tend not to
fangirling
take,
right now.
I tend to not take breath, so you can't interrupt.
All righty. Let's we can move forward. Thank
Okay.
you.
Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So, a couple of things we want to talk about here. We're going to set the stage, because after that, we're going to do audience participation. This is always my favorite part. So, what do I mean by life event? That's why I put this on the slide. Now, in terms of life event planning, a life event has three components. So, I've highlighted the keywords for you to keep in mind. So, first, it's an occurrence or happening that changes some aspect of our current life. Number two, it can be anticipated or unexpected. Number three, it might or will require some kind of response. Now, the key component here is that it might or will require some kind of response. Now, not all life events require a response. It's entirely dictated by your personal circumstances. But if you believe that an event might or will require you to respond to it, the key to doing successful life event planning is that you complete in advance as many of those activities that you can that are going to make up your response. Now, keep in mind that a lot of life events, they don't carry that life or death consequences, and they're not good or bad, right? Look at that definition again. I'm pointing over here because my slide's over to my right. It's the phrase changes some aspect of your current life. Doesn't suggest that the change is positive or negative. It's just a change. So I'm going to give you an example. You have a roommate, and the roommate helps with either paying your rent, your food, your gas, your utilities, whatever it is. Now your roommate announces they're moving out. probably going to require a response. Now, if you absolutely loathe your roommate, you might consider this a positive change. On the other hand, if you absolutely love your roommate, you might be very unhappy about the news. Either way, though, it's going to require a response, isn't it? If your roommate moves out, would you be prepared to shoulder the financial consequences of this change yourself? Do you have a contingency plan for this happening? You can see how it doesn't matter. You like the guy, you don't like the guy, it doesn't matter. The roommate's moving out, your life is going to change. You need to come up with a response. Okay. Make sense? Nod. Making sense. Okay. Now, let's talk about what we mean by life event planning in terms of what we just talked about with a life event. 3 easy steps. 1, you identify all the life-changing events that might or will occur in your life. Okay. Number 2, you're going to figure out everything that you might or will have to do in response to the event. Number 3, you do all the things that you can do of those list of things you came up with in advance. Step 3 is the key to successful life event planning. It's essential for the events that cause us real fear. And we're going to get to that in a minute. Why is it so essential? And those things that truly cause us fear. Being able to prepare while you have the time, the wherewithal, the clarity of mind, the money, whatever it might take, that you can handle the event before it happens, and all you can think is, holy shit, what am I going to do now? Okay, this is audience participation. Now, for those of you who are watching this later, you're going to think about this for yourself as well. This is how you're kind of getting a taste of how I'm going to do my webinars. I like to have audience participation because I want to hear your stories. I'm a storyteller. I want to hear your stories. I won't call on you when you're in my classes, though I love to hear from other people. Geralyn has been in my classes before, so she knows, yeah, I like to hear from people. Okay, look at the slide. We're going to look at 2 life events. We're going to see how this works. Let's take life event number 1, marriage. Okay, take that event, looking at the slide. Let's look at the criteria. Okay, marriage kind of fits the criteria. It's going to change some aspect of your life. Okay, it's probably anticipated. I think gone are the days of shotgun marriages, but who knows? And it's probably going to require a response, right? Fits our criteria. Now, thinking about that, tell me what actions you think someone might or will have to take because marriage is a life event for them. You're stuck, Geraldine. You're the only one on right now. But everybody else listening, think about it's marriage. It's a life event. What would you plan for? What could you do in advance?
You can save a lot of money.
Absolutely.
When I was much younger and I was engaged, we never did get married, but when I was younger and I was engaged, what we had agreed to do was all of my money went into a savings account and we live off of his money so that when the time came and we had children, I can take off of work for several years and we wouldn't have to worry about money.
Well, that's great example. Great planning. Yeah. You bet.
So the other thing is, what, Pika? What do you want? My cat is bothering me. When I think about marriage, because I do marriage coaching or marriage consulting, I want people to go through a process before they get married because there are several things that you really need to talk about before entering into that kind of an agreement. Like, do you want kids? If you want kids, how many? Are you capable of having kids? How are you going to raise those children? How do you feel about finances? How much is fun money? What are you going to save? Do you want to live in a city? Do you want to live in an urban area, or would you rather be in a rural area or a suburb? Like, all these things are major things in your life.
Life changing.
You know? Yeah. And when you're having to deal with a second person, you absolutely have to have these discussions. And what I find with a lot of the couples that come to me, they didn't have these discussions. I don't know why. A lot of people don't even think about it.
Um,
So pre-planning in advance is for good things as well as things that you may think are not so good.
right.
And what I tell people all the time is energy and change is neutral. It's how
Right.
you couch it and what you want to experience or how you choose to experience it that makes it negative or positive.
Right. See, Geralyn's a setup for me,
Yeah.
right? But that's exactly, and for everybody who's listening, it's even, she has experience in that. For those of us who are just like, okay, I hadn't thought about that. How about the basic one? You're about to get married. Plan the wedding. Does that sound too stupid? No, that's something you might have to do. How about this one? Change your will.
Mm.
How many people think about that? How about this one? Something you could do in advance. Now think about, the idea is, what can I do in advance? What do I need to think about now before I'm in the middle of this? How about changing your name?
Oh,
If
wow.
you if you decide to do that, let me tell you, because I've, off topic, but I've changed my name many times. It's really fun to change your name. Why not change it? Depending on what state you're in, certain things happen. But think about, I want to change my name. Off the top of your head, what are the 4,000 other places you're going to have to update because you changed your name? So the sooner that you do that and think about it, the better. Now, all of that's anticipated, right? If you look at the slide, anticipated or unexpected. Let's talk about what can happen, what unexpected thing might occur related to the life event called marriage. Unexpected.
The death in the family.
Absolutely. Great one. Totally unexpected. How about the classic example, prenup?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody goes into a marriage thinking they're going to get divorced. I certainly didn't. I didn't have a prenup. I didn't own anything. I didn't need one. But if you look at the definition of step number 2 in life event planning, might or will. And we're back, believe it or not, we're back to the subject of fear. So if the idea of you getting married and all your things, all your stuff, whatever it is, causes you fear that, okay, once I get married, now what does that mean? The classic example is doing a prenup. Unexpected. You're not expecting to get divorced, but what if? Anything that causes you concern about it. That's why you want to do it now and think about it now. Think of every single thing that might occur. Now, I didn't say might go wrong. I said might occur.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the next one. The classic life event planning, death. You got to go there. And you think that it's pretty obvious, but it's always fun when I bring this one up in my classes, the things that people come up with when I say, let's talk about death. Now, I'm guessing, of course, it's anticipated. We're all going to die. But we all know that there are all kinds of untimely ways for us to meet our demise, right? It's definitely life changing, but I want to point out something that's imperative when it comes to life event planning and fear. It's not changing your life. It's changing the life of everyone you're leaving behind. That is an essential piece of life event planning and facing fears. And you've left everybody behind, and now they have to come up with the response to that event. So let's start with the usual stuff. We're going to talk about what actions might or will you have to take in advance to prepare for the life event called death. This is a pretty easy one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting to me how many people, even when they're sick, don't want to do what they need to do. I
No.
recently went through this with my dad, and we had talked for years. I mean, we always talked about what we wanted as a funeral and those types of things, but nothing was ever in writing. And as he became more ill, I was like, we need to get this written down so that we can show it that this really is your will. So I had the living wills done
Yeah.
for him. And when we went to the hospital, my mother was so angry at me for giving the living
Yes.
will to the hospital. And I'm like, but they need this. They need to know. But she was so adverse to knowing what was on it that she thought that he just had a DNR and that was it. And that's not what was
Right.
on it at all. So her, as his spouse of 60 years, had no idea what his wishes were because she didn't want to hear it because she was so afraid of what he was going to say. So,
And that's a great example. It's how most people feel.
mhm,
Because we always say death. It's the usual estate planning stuff. What is it that makes it so hard for people to to face their own death? And it's morbid. It's this. A lot of people believe in one way or another. Well, that means it's going to happen. I can make it. Well, yeah, it's going to happen. That's not the point, is it? Yeah, but I could think about it. Could like let's not go there. So, of course,
as
all
a psychic, I gotta say this. As a psychic, when people say, "Am I going to die?" The answer is 100% all the time. Yes, yes, you're gonna. We're all going to
right,
die.
right,
What? That's not a question. That is not a
right,
question you need to be asking.
right. But if
So,
you're asking me when,
yeah,
once you start asking when, now you're in my world.
yes,
Because now the world is, we don't know, so what can you do in advance? I'm telling you right now,
exactly.
even if Geraldine told you the date you were going to die, there's things you need to do, then you're even more lucky, aren't you? Because you've been told a date and the
Mhm.
clock is ticking, you have things to do. So, of course, you create a will, you do the power of attorney. Your example was a great example, Geraldine, of I run into this with people all the time. They didn't want to talk about it. I'm not ready. I'm not this. I don't want to hear it. Your father took care of it. Your mother took care of it. All of those things that we hear until now you're up against it and you're the one who's got to deal with it. And yes, you're feeling devastation and loss, but once you start feeling fear on top of all the rest of that, there is no way that you can think clearly. So, and like you said, funeral arrangements, you talked to all about that. You didn't write it down. Now, what happens when your death, your death is unexpected?
If you have
What
it written
actions?
down, things are done. I wrote my first will when I was 23 years old,
Right.
and well, you're 23. Well, I had a friend who was hit by a drunk driver, and I was hit by a drunk driver when I was 19. That devastated my life. So I I know things can happen. I watch it all the time. I help people through those things,
Right.
but I feel like there's something in our society we're so afraid to be prepared
Yes.
because we feel like, oh, we're making it happen. Well, you're
Yes.
not making it happen. You're just prepared for it to happen. So I always had, even when I went in to have my child, I had 2 pages full of, if this happens, then this is what you do. If this happens, because I didn't want my family to have to make those decisions.
And there it is. See, I told you Geralyn's the setup because this is what I've, but then she and I have talked about this stuff before, and she has learned. Remember what we said: the experience that you were given, the lesson that you can learn from that experience. So this is how it's worked for me. For several years, when I was working, I had to travel. All right. Now, during one trip, and I had a will and all that stuff, but during one trip, it occurred to me that would my loved ones know exactly what had to be done? Not where my will was, but what had to be done. And let's not forget that in the event of my death, those left behind are devastated, probably fearful, and now they have things they're going to have to do and make decisions. So once I landed and went, okay, now I've got to make sure I took care of it. First of all, I wrote my own obituary. Anyone who has to write an obituary for someone who has passed knows that is not an easy thing to do. Okay. It's not easy. I've written my own. Besides, I want to make sure everybody thought I was dandy. Who knows what somebody might write if it wasn't me? Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, wrote my own. Gives you a chance to sing your own praises. Then I wrote a document I literally titled "To Do in the Event of My Death," and I sent it to like 400 people because I wanted to make sure everybody knew what to do. Remember, you're in fear, you're devastated. You can barely remember to put your socks on, let alone now the 1,000 things you have to do. Geralyn just went through it. The 1,000 things you have to do, even when you have planned in advance. So, of course, I put down, here's where you'll find all of my important papers. But here's a couple things that I also did. I wrote down a phone tree because how many people in your family know who your friends are? And don't you think they're going to want to know that you've passed?
Wow.
So who do you call? Right?
I didn't
How
even
about
think
this
of
one?
that. That's
I
amazing.
say, and you're a smart girl, you even knew that. Who would you know to call? And and aside from the fact that, oh my God, the utilities and the companies and all that, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the simple. How about this? The unexpected death of the person who's working. Do you know who their employer is? You're going to have to call their boss. Somebody's going to have to know. How are you going to spend any time doing that? The reason I know all this is I went all through that. I went through all of this. That's how I learned it. And I don't want anybody else to go through that. Here's the last piece. What am I going to do with my dogs?
That's the first
Adolescents.
thing that I have all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
What
where
am
my
I going
cat goes.
This is where your cat, where am I going to do with my dog? Oh, in my divorce decree, the longest piece was custody of my dogs. The longest piece. So what am I going to do with the dogs? The last thing people are going to do is go, oh my God, McDowell's dogs, what are you supposed to do with them? First of all, how do we even get into the property? Because at the time I had 4 very big German Shepherds. You want to go in and feed them? Now they would have shown you where all the food was and given you the jewelry and made lunch for you. You wouldn't know that, right? How are you going to know? So what I had to do is I had to write in my little document first who their guardians were. Second, where the guardians lived. Third, if they're not next door, I made arrangements with the pet shipping company in advance who was going to ship the dogs to their new owners.
Wow, that's awesome.
Because the last thing you want to do, now, was it in my will? Sure it was. Do I want to make my loved ones read through the entire will to figure that stuff out when all it took was 3 pages of call these guys, they'll ship the dogs, everything is good, and set aside the money for the people who are going to have to take care of the dogs. Think it through. This is what I always tell people. Where do I even start? Walk through your daily life. Spend a week thinking about every single thing that you're doing. And would somebody else know how to do it for you if you weren't here? It's that simple, right? That's I don't want to make somebody else do that. One more story, of course, to share. This true story. This is actually happening on Facebook right now. A colleague I've worked with for many years put his first cousin put up on his Facebook page last week that he passed away. Now, the only reason anybody knew about it is because his neighbors, one reason I got to know my neighbors, they know I'm out here alone now. They are so good keeping an eye on me. His neighbors noticed that they hadn't seen him coming and going in a few days. They called the police. The police let themselves in. He died at home. There's no documentation. There's no paperwork. They can't find anything. So his first cousin posted up on his webpage, so because he had access to his cousin's webpage, I want to share with everybody, this person has just passed away. We don't know who to call. I don't have the details. Thank God they found my phone number in his house. And we're going to go from there. Last week to this morning, people are still posting. Does anybody know so and so? I think she knows who to call. Does anybody have an idea? I tried going to Facebook and they've blocked me. So now we've spent over a week trying to figure out about this person's life that nobody knows anything about. Who would you call? Do we need to notify who's his family? And if we had just taken that little bit of time to think about that in advance, then those things would have been taken care of. So before we move on to the next topic, I want to leave everybody with a takeaway that I want everybody to think about. I'm not going to call on Geralyn. And in my class, when we get to this part of my class, I never call on people because this is very personal. What I want you to do is think about what it would mean for you to do the thing you cannot do. We just talked about a lot of stuff. Everybody has that thing that goes, holy shit. What life event might or will cause you absolute terror? And would you be able to prepare for it in advance? Now, I always bring that up to people because the woman I had coffee with yesterday, she's taken my class before. She said in my class when she took it, I know exactly what the event is, McDowell. It's the death of one of my children.
Mm.
Okay. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. She said, I can't. I won't. So she was able to say what it was, but she could not bring herself to even think about it. And she still hasn't prepared for that. Now, why does this matter? Okay. You're at home, you get a call from the emergency room. The emergency room is calling and saying, your life is here, your child is here. They have been hurt. We need you to come down here. Your child needs medical attention. For anybody who's gone through that, I don't have children, but I went through this with someone else. You show up at the front desk, and what do they start doing? Firing questions at you. What are the questions they start firing at you? Oh my God, it's your life story of your child. Social security number, blood type, allergies, medications, doctor's name, insurance company, 1,000 other things. And what are you doing standing there? What are you thinking about? Nothing. Fear is the only thing you can think about. But now you're being asked to make life decisions at that moment. Can you do it or not? Most people can't. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my slide while we go on to the next thing. And you are certainly welcome to fill in, Geralyn, if you want, with comments, or let me see. I know I always like, what am I doing? There we go.
Oh,
Stop sharing.
Kai.
Okay, I know. There we
Yes,
go.
wow, the sun is really coming in now. I
Yeah,
look
you look
radiant.
like you're ethereal. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
And I had to
Yeah.
move my backdrop because the cat wanted to be let out. But
There you go.
let me go get it. So when it comes to these things, the things that we're afraid to talk about are usually the things that we need to talk about, that has to be discussed. When, and I know a lot of people can't start this right now, but start introducing the topics slowly and gently if you can. I We were in a situation where I sat my father down, like, you're doing this living well right now, whether mommy wants you to do it or not. So I had to be kind of brutal in order to get the things done that needed to be done before my father was incapacitated. I had to several times just take the lead and not be gentle
Yeah.
because when you're dealing with those types of things, somebody needs to be the leader. So if you know
Right.
who that person might be, you may want to designate them or something. Like I
Right.
have for myself, it's my friend Ed, who is he's a registered nurse. He's not part of the family. So if they're all
Right.
mad at him after he makes decisions, it doesn't matter
Right.
because he doesn't have to deal with anybody after I'm gone. Um, my child knows everything, all my passwords, everything. I have things in my phone. I have things written in my home. I've always been very proactive with that, but I think part of the reason why, because as weird as it may seem, as terrible as my mother was with everything happening with my dad, we always talked about death. We always talked about what we wanted to do. We always talked about, well, who would you call and who's your doctor? We're very, very open. My mom's not,
Yeah.
but she makes sure that we are, which is hilarious. But to the point where my child and I share our locations all the time because my dad was always afraid that if something ever happened to us, we wouldn't know because I travel a lot.
See?
And I
Yeah.
always, everything I have is always in two names. It was always mine and my father's. Now it's mine and my child's. And I always, before cell phones and we could track each other,
Right.
always let my parents know where I was or somebody knew. There's always at least two people who knew where I was going, who I was with. My kid got a ride to a meetup when we first got back to the Philly area. And as they were leaving, I went out, I took a picture of the person driving them, I took a picture of the car, I took a picture of the license plate. And the kid was like, mom a little overprotective? And my kid was like, no, she just knows the city. She's from the city. So she's not going to let me get in the car with somebody who could possibly abscond with me or do something to me
Right.
and not have some place to go,
Right.
not have something to do. So we were raised to be hyper vigilant with a lot of things, but it was very open discussion. I'm very open with my child. I know his medical history, he knows my medical history,
Right.
and it's always like these family discussions that we have. So I feel like that's really important, not just for in case of death, but also
Anything.
anything. Yeah.
Life changing. Remember what we said. It's life changing.
Yep.
It's anticipated or unexpected, and it usually requires a response. That's what I try to tell people. This isn't about, yeah, there are some life events that have life or death circumstances, but it's
Mhm.
the simplest stuff. It's the simplest stuff, which is a great setup because that's what we're going to talk about next. See, do you like
Awesome.
how we did that, everybody? We just kind of segged that way. Yeah, okay. So, okay, now remember that I said I learned two things that are at the heart of feeling the fear and doing it anyways. Now, we just talked about the first one, the steps that you can take in advance to prepare for whatever might happen, particularly those that cause us real fear. And since that's what we've been talking about today, we're kind of focusing on that. Now, we're going to move on to the second one, changing our perception of the event in order to find solutions that might or will mitigate the fear, if not remove it altogether, so that you can keep moving forward. And we're going to talk about just those, not just life or death, but some really basic ones. Because the whole point is, yes, you're getting news that's horrible, that can be haunting. You're not changing the news, you're just changing how you deal with it. So in her book, What is Genuine Control? Deanne Repick said this, I'm going to read it. Very helpful. Genuine control is not about predicting the future, my grade, my income, my relationships, or 1,000 other things. It's knowing that whatever happens, I can choose how to perceive and react to life's events. So, as we said earlier, make no mistake, for our perception is our reality. And our perceptions derive from a lot of things, our beliefs, our culture, our experiences, our relationships. The list is endless, which is why changing our perception is not an easy task. It's the personal lens through which we view our version of reality. But for any given life event, there can be other versions, better or worse, if our lens is different. What we assume, believe, or fear might happen is just our perception of the event. So only when we change our perception of the event can we change how we feel about any life event and ultimately how we're going to respond to it. Which is not to say that coming up with all your solutions, everything that Geralyn just shared with you, everything that I have shared with you, is going to make the fear necessarily go away or mean that, oh, when that happens, I'm not going to be fearful at all. However, what we can learn is to give ourselves permission to feel that fear and then take whatever steps are necessary to address it. And here's how, from those two experiences I shared with you, how I learned that perception is the key to overcoming the fear that I had. My divorce, and then hearing the news about Kona. And the first one is, of course, this is where that whole life or death thing comes into play, what Geralyn was just sharing. It doesn't have to be about that. It's about the basic stuff. So, as it turned out, my ex-husband and I stayed together for another 3 years before ending our marriage. But I realized at that moment I was being given a golden opportunity. I got a chance to figure out how to get out of what I called passenger mode. So from that moment forward to the next 3 years, I made it a point of identifying every single thing I didn't know how to do and either finding somebody who could teach me how to do it or learning how to come up with a solution and take care of it all by myself. I am an ace on my riding lawnmower now. I know exactly where the water main is. I can take care of all my fence lines. you should see the things I could do. I don't touch electricity because I know if I do it, I'm going to blow myself up. But so when my end of my marriage came, was I still an emotional wreck? Absolutely. But I was able to keep moving forward because now I knew how to take care of myself, my home, my pets, and the countless activities, big and small, that now made up my daily life. Now, how did this come into play with Kona? Remember how I said that I was overcome with the fear of losing him, that I couldn't think straight and I cried for 2 days. Well, I dried my tears after 2 days and I decided to change how I would perceive this awful news because I realized I had a choice. I could choose to let it negatively impact every moment I had left with him. I could lock him in the house, never let him chase rabbits, never let him outside, never let him bark at the birds, never leave him alone for a single moment, just in case something happened. Or I could choose to see this as a blessing and be grateful for every single moment I was going to have with him. After that, we would go on before chasing rabbits. He could never catch them. That wasn't the point. Taking long walks, aware of every possible consequence, but living our lives to the fullest. And here's the amazing part. He lived not for 3 weeks, but for 4 years, which is not to say that I didn't have to come up with a plan for facing my fears and dealing with Kona's condition realistically. However, once I changed my perception, I was able to do the thing that I thought I could never do. I faced my fears. I wrote down absolutely every single thing I could think of that might or will happen. I did have to figure out what to do if Kona had a heart attack while we were walking and I was away from the car and I was going to have to figure out how to get him back to the car. I did have to figure out what to do if I had to get him to the emergency room and now I've got to get him in the car. He weighed over 100 pounds. There's no way I could get him up by myself. I had to write down every single thing I could think of as a result of his condition, but then I wrote down what I could do about it. And then I was able to do the thing I thought I could never do. I figured out how to go on with my life without Kona in my life. So I want to leave everybody with one last thought of everything that we talked about today. It actually is a quote from Jim Morrison, and he said this: expose yourself to your deepest fear. After that, fear has no power. You are free. That's it.
That is so, so true. And I find that when people, I always say, if you can't adjust your circumstance, change your altitude. So look at it from a different perspective, which is the same thing that you're saying. And I noticed that when you see the overall picture, which is one of the things that Spirit has helped me with, to be able to see these things for people,
Yeah.
it does bring a sense of relief. When I first started working and doing the work that I do, one of my first clients back in the day, I started in 94. So it was a couple years in, what I saw for her was horrific. And I didn't stop with that. I asked to see the outcome. Like, why is this happening? That's always my question. What are we supposed to learn from this? Where are we supposed to go from this? And she was in a horrific car accident and she was hospitalized for a year.
Huh.
She couldn't move for several months. She was suicidal in the beginning. And she said, she just kept hearing me say, when you come out of this, you're going to want to die when it first happens. It's going to seem like the worst thing that ever happened in your life. But when you come out of this, you're going to be a changed person and you're actually going to be happy. And that helped propel her forward because she knew at the end of the rainbow, there was this pot of gold that she wasn't sure what was in it or what it was going to look like. But she knew this happened with purpose and that she was meant to traverse to the other side and that it was meant to change things for the better, even though it seemed like horrible. And of course, one of the things I tell people all the time, and Kona's story is a good example of that is never listen to the prognosis. Just because you get a prognosis, it does not have to be that. So if you have something that happens, it doesn't mean you have to give in to, well, this is just the way it's going to be.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be that. I mean, I was told I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 25. I'm 55 now. Still have never, thank God. I mean, I have some problems with my hip here and there, but my back healed, even though I was told it couldn't. And I've done things, even though I was told I couldn't. So don't listen to the naysayers. Be like my cousin Phil, who was one of the first female police officers in Philadelphia. And when somebody tells you you can't do it, take it as a challenge.
Yeah,
If it's something
absolutely.
you really want and something you can reach for.
But remember, we also said I still had to come up with solutions
Mm-hmm.
because that his condition, this is what he has. Let's start with what is, not what if.
Mm-hmm.
What
Right.
is, this is what he's got. Here's some things that could happen as a result of that. Okay. But I could still, and I still had to do certain of those things. But it didn't change the fact that, okay, if now I'm looking at there's nothing I can do about the fact he's going to die, but what are the thousand other things that are in my control? How he's going to live his life, giving him I will tell you the best part about the Kona story is that he is a miracle because he is in veterinary case studies because there's no reason he should have lived that long. He was actually one of 50 dogs that got a pacemaker.
Oh,
It's
wow.
yeah, they do it in Colorado. They only do 50 a year and pacemaker. And but for me, of course, Kona and I both agreed that there were things that we needed to do. We both needed to do. He had time on earth. He still had things to finish. And what he wanted to finish was allowing me to see that I could live without him.
Oh,
Because the second that I heard he was going to die, we were going out together. He came into my life as my guide. We were going out together, and he wanted to make sure, Mommy, you got things you need to do. I got to go to the other side.
I thought you were
So,
going to say catch a rabbit.
yeah, yeah. I know he's the official greeter on the other side. For those of your listeners, if you've got pets who are going to cross or at any time cross, tell them to go look up Kona. He's the official greeter on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. One of my other dogs is over there. She's the official fun police. Don't engage with her. She's annoying as hell. She'll tell all your dogs, "You're in heaven, but you still can't play too much. Oh, go away." But yeah, it is our choice. It is it is a prognosis is nothing more than one outcome, and you can decide that what those outcomes could be, and you might not be able to change your the person that you read for. She's going to be in the accident. Okay, can you change that or not? Well, a thousand things can happen. We know that we can get on one path and then the universe can take us in the spider web of a thousand different directions. But that's just one outcome. And if this is where I am right now, what can I do with it? I will tell you that my fears and solutions, all the stuff we're talking about, and you said it earlier, Geralyn, I like how you put it, go slowly. How I laid the book out in the webinar is the same way. If you can't get to that place where you can think about what happens if your child dies, I can tell you a couple other things you could try. Pretty simple stuff. You don't have to go that far. Ease your way into it. Of the things that I learned all those years ago, I still do them to this day. I still do a fears and solutions document. Still, when I find, okay, what am I really feeling here? I just heard this. What's really going on? How can I get in front of it? Because I'm being asked to make a decision. Okay, let me sit down and think about it clearly. And I will write out, here's everything that could happen. Here's my solutions. Okay, I got this.
And you could
And I
do that with
still do it
everything. It doesn't even have to be a
everything.
fear. It could be,
Does
well, if I get
everything.
this job, then, then this happens. If
Absolutely.
I get this job, this is what there's so many
Yeah.
for
It's
looking
everything.
at the future. You don't need to know exactly what it looks like. I say, like when doing readings, I give you the landscape. You decide how to traverse it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to make these decisions, and we don't want to be in passenger mode. And I loved that seminar when you did that seminar about passenger mode.
It's so fun. Yeah.
So
It's so fun.
accurate
Yeah.
as to the way most people, especially today when there's so much going on, that it's overwhelming, and there's so much going on that we feel like we can't change things. You fall into passenger mode, and that is the worst thing you could do for yourself. You
And let me
need,
relay in here so everybody,
yeah.
we're talking about passenger mode. It is, I describe it like this: paying silent witness to those things that someone else does for you. Silent witness. Perfectly okay if somebody does something for you. I let electricians take care of the electricity so I don't blow myself up. But you need to know what those things are. What are those things that you've paid silent witness to? If you do not, every time I teach that class, every time I do any talk about this, I tell everybody, if you do nothing else, do that one thing. Write down every single thing that somebody does for you and decide whether you're going to learn how to do it yourself, hire somebody, or figure it out in advance, because it can be the small, this, like you said, it isn't just about fear.
Mhm.
It can be the smallest things.
It could be
Yeah.
grocery shopping.
Grocery
It could
shopping,
be paying bills,
anything. Yeah.
walking the dog, taking care of the
Anything.
cat, any of that stuff. You
Anything.
don't need to be
But
a
you don't know what
passenger
it
in your
is
life.
until you do that. And what I always tell people is, like I said earlier, the easiest way to do that is literally walk through the house. Walk through your house, because people always ask me, how do you get started? Walk through your house, walk through your yard, look at every single thing in front of you and ask yourself, if it broke, could I fix it?
Oh, that's good.
That's all you do. If it
Yeah.
broke, do I know I couldn't fix it? Who would I call? Okay, if I had to do something with it, would I know what to do? It doesn't matter what it is. If I had to do something with this thing, would I know how to do it? And I'll tell you why that made such a huge difference for me too, is because for 100 years, I suffered from phone phobia. Still hard for me. Phone phobia. You can laugh about it, but for those of us who suffer from it, it is not funny. Particularly in the days of when there wasn't any, can I sign up for something online and they'll like fill out a form and they'll call me. So now I'm by myself out in this place. I have to learn how to call people, ask for help, find contractors, you name it. And it would take me days to even get the courage to pick up the phone, because my ex-husband did it all. And after he died, my sister did it all, the phone calls for me until she died.
Oh, wow.
See, now
Yeah.
it's me, and I
And
better
I
figure.
think that's something that the younger generations really need to learn about, because they're all about, don't answer the phone.
Oh, good point.
Somebody's somebody's visiting me and I did not, they're just in the neighborhood. What does this mean? And
Oh my
they
God,
just
that's
get,
right.
there's so much anxiety around it. And it's like, you need connection.
Yeah,
And I think that's something that we are death lacking terribly, especially after COVID.
yeah.
That
And I'm
connection, and it's
so
not online where you can pretend to be whoever you want to
oh,
be, but
please.
actually face to face, hearing somebody's voice on the phone and having real connection.
Your neighbors. It
Mhm.
just never occurred to me. We all are. We all have 5 acres. We're 2 acres away from each other's houses, and then 10 acres away from each other this way. And taking the time to get to know my neighbors has been a godsend. First of all, because we all know each other's schedule. I
Mhm.
live alone out here. And if they don't see me after a while, they know maybe we better check to make sure she's there. I do the same thing with my neighbor on my right and my neighbor on my left. We know each other's schedules. Does that mean we're spying on each other? No, I don't care. It means I haven't seen you in a while. You live alone. The lady to my right is a widow lady. She's alone too. And the people over here, we know each other's schedules. So if I haven't seen you in a while, I'm guessing, especially for somebody like me, I could have fallen down the stairs. And the only person who's upset is my dog Rhaegar, because he's probably going, "Are you going to feed me anytime soon? You're laying at the bottom of the stairs, mommy. Do I have to worry about it?" It's though, like you said, it's not online. It's face to face. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing over there? Can I
It's
help
called
you?
being neighborly.
Oh, it is.
Being from
Thank
South
God for
Philly,
that.
we all knew each other. I could run into anybody's, even if I didn't know the person. If I
Yeah.
was out walking as a teenager and somebody was following me or something happened, I could knock on any
Wow.
door. And
Wow.
because we were a community, I went to the Bahamas after my freshman year of high school, not high school, college. I went on a cruise. And of course, like my friends all met people from all over the place. I met guys from Jersey, and they were they were all like, "What are the odds?" I went to Hawaii. I met people from Philly.
Right.
Everywhere I go, I like attract this Northeast corridor kind of a thing. But I'm used to community, so wherever I go, I build it.
Oh, that's a good point.
Whether
Yeah.
or not they're used to it. Like living in Colorado, I think was the most difficult place to build community, which was weird because you would think Hawaii is so transient and everything, but in Colorado, people are friendly but cold.
And by the way, I'm in Colorado. That's why she mentioned it. That's where I
Well,
am.
and I lived there for a year.
Yeah, that's right. You're
Yeah.
actually right.
And it was
Yeah,
very difficult to
very difficult.
form the relationships and really get to know the neighbors and stuff because they did not want to be bothered with knowing each
Nope.
other.
Yep.
Like they'll
Yep.
say hello and act all friendly and offer help, but they didn't really mean anything that they ever said. In
Yeah.
Philly, if someone is offering you help, it's because they're going to give you help.
Yeah.
You don't have that fakeness. If somebody doesn't like you, there
Yeah.
is no doubt in your mind that this
Yeah.
person does not want to be bothered with you. There's none of this,
Exactly.
niceties. So I wasn't used to that fakeness.
Yeah.
But building community, I feel, is like really important. And it's really important to have that community too when you're going through these trials and going through these difficult times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or
Just
or fun times, great times. You want people
even
to share
that's
things
right.
with.
That's right. It just so happened because I had to pick a topic, a theme. It
Mhm.
was fear. But it's just as important to be able to say, what did I say? You saw nothing about fear in my slide about life events or life event planning. What did we say? It's not good or bad. It's
It's
just you
neutral.
have to ask, you have simply asked yourself, if something might occur in my life, would I know what to do? That's all. It's just that simple. Once you get there, then the next step is, okay, I wouldn't know what to do. What could I do? And for years, the whole time, those last 4 years that Kona was alive, I kept that piece of paper with me in the car because it had all the phone numbers. I'd
Hmm.
already told everybody, this is what I need to do if he passes here, because I knew what was going to happen. I'm not going to be able to think straight. How about this one? You're in your car, you get a flat tire. What's the first thing? First of all, abject fear, right? You're just like, your body freezes. Right? Now, at that moment, can you remember that you belong to AAA? Or do you know, for me, being alone, I don't have anybody I can call. For those of you who have partners, spouses, children, etc., I got none of that. So it's call AAA or I walk. But in those moments when those things happen, what's the first thing you go? You're just like frozen.
Hmm.
So I carried with me all of those pieces of paper that laid out, I have a flat, it's literally said, I got a flat tire. And column number 2 said, call this. What if I've got the dogs and I have to have the car towed?
Oh,
What am
wow.
I
Yeah.
going to do? See? And I traveled with the dogs all the time. Who am I going to call? Because no tow truck driver is going to go, I am not. No, you can sit in the car. I'm going to tow the car because I am not taking these dogs in my cab. That's what I mean. Think about your life as you move through your daily activities and picture to yourself, this is my activity. What would I do if? All there is to it. Pretty simple.
Simple is not always easy.
Well,
But
there
thank
is
you so much, McDowell. Did you,
that.
where can we find your books? We can find your books on your
Oh,
website,
yeah, 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 yeah.
cracksandconsciousness.com.
Yes. So let me just pull that
And
up. Now, they're actually in 2 places.
mhm.
I am so can you see my homepage?
Yes.
Okay. So I am on Amazon. It's ebooks and paperbacks. And so this is where my homepage is. And then over in the corner here, this is my suitable substitute for Kona. A psychic once told me, so I know Geralyn could appreciate that. She said, sometimes we come in with our partners. I'm not soulmates and all that. I'm not talking twin flames. I'm not talking that. I'm talking about you have a partner. Sometimes Kona decided to pass on. She sent me what she calls a suitable substitute. I love that term. That's Rhaegar. He's 6. He is my suitable substitute. So he and I, that's what we do together.
I love that you have a book titled Will Work to Feed Dogs. That was my favorite when I saw that one come out. I was like, oh my God.
Will Work to Feed Dogs. Now, what is Will Work to Feed Dogs about? So you can see Will Work to Feed Dogs. It's a sandwich board, right? I wrote that book because of Kona.
Aww.
What it's about is, can you find it? Frankly, it's my anti-Oprah Winfrey book. That's what I call it. So don't anybody, think bad about that. But anybody who says if you're not doing what you absolutely love, there's something wrong with you. Anybody who says that to me, what I want to do is hunt them down and kill them. Because that is a very privileged American cultural thought. Not all of us can do the work that we absolutely are in our soul of souls, think we are put on life to do.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was about Kona. I worked in a job that certainly wasn't therapeutic storytelling, certainly wasn't my life purpose, but it paid me a huge amount of money. Kona's medical bills for 10 solid years was $10,000 a year.
Wow.
A year. How did I pay for that? I worked to feed dogs. I took the job I had to do and made it meaningful. Maybe it wasn't my life's work, but it was meaningful because it achieved another purpose, giving him the medical care that he needed. That's why I called it, you saw, 7 steps to identifying meaningful life work, not your life's work, your life work. You got to keep a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back.
And some people, they don't have something that is a through line throughout their life that is their purpose. Like their purpose might be just to walk through the city and smile, and that brightens everybody else's day. It's not like this huge thing. And sometimes it changes.
Heroic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did a whole thing on that about is a life's purpose necessary? And I don't feel that it is. I feel like people put too much pressure on themselves to try and find that through line that is through their entire lives that most people don't have.
Most people don't have it. You're exactly right. One of the webinars I teach is called finding your inner Tigger.
Yes, I love that one too.
Because if you're gonna pounce, you gotta have some bounce. And what's that about? It's about you do not have to live a heroic life. It's enough sometimes to just show up and be a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's find your inner Tigger. What makes you get up in the morning so you're not Eeyore, right? To that hangdog thing. That's what this is about. And we're back to what we say, perception.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about perception. Doing the thing you think you cannot do. The world is more than we know. That is why we doubt, why we believe, and how the smallest shifts in perspective can create a greater understanding of our place within it. Geralyn's stuff in there is really good, people. So you should buy the books. You can just read what she had to say. Getting what you wish for. That is, that whole, what do you focus your attention on? Actually, this one's really fun because it'll show you how to make a vision board. It's really fun. I'm trying to figure out how to turn that into a webinar. I haven't yet because you're gluing and pasting things, and it's not quite the same if you're not in the room when you're doing it as a webinar. And then, of course, I've been down here before, and this time I know the way out. This is about, I had so many people give me stories that they said, this is how my life was going. And then I got to a crossroad and went an entirely different direction. This book is about not in a million years.
Now, is that still in print? Because when I looked it up, there's no
Did it say it wasn't in print?
There was no price on it. There's a couple of them that don't have like prices, like
Oh,
doing the
you're
thing you
right. Look
think
at
you cannot
this.
do. It says currently unavailable. I
No, well,
think,
that version of it is. Now you can find
okay.
it. See, the thing of it is, for those of you who haven't dealt with Amazon and put your books up there, it's squirrely. It's really squirrely. I tried to publish a later version of one of these just
Mhm.
about like 2 months ago, and they came back and said, "We don't think you've changed it enough." Well, what would you like me to do? Change my name?
Sure.
But I mean, how change how much? So yeah, I'll thank you for pointing that out. But that particular one is it. I had so much fun with that one. I've been down here before, but this time I know the way out.
And that
It
one, I think
literally
when I
is.
did find it, it was a used copy for $45.
I know. Don't go there. So what I tell everybody is, you can't find it. Go over to Smashwords, all one word,
No, what I'm saying
smashwords.com.
is that it's
I
worth
know.
that much. Don't say don't buy it.
I
I mean,
know.
yes, there's other places to find it, but
I
it's
saw
worth
that and
a
I
lot.
thought,
Yeah.
and again, karma being what it is, when we all pass and get to the other side, I'm going to look up that guy who decided to take my book and stick it out there for 45 bucks, and we're going to have a conversation.
Well, he felt it was worthy. People put worth, again, perception
Yeah.
on things
Yeah,
by what they call, because you're going to get what you pay for, which is not always true.
exactly
But
right. And I try really hard not to charge a lot
mhm.
for my books. But also, if all you care about is the ebook version, then you can go over to Smashwords. They do all digital. And the really good thing is, now you're coming up on the end of the year, twice a year, Smashwords does a special. I always participate, and you get all my books for free.
Ooh.
Free ebooks for free. So I always put that out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram when they're running that special, to make sure that people know about that. And of course, you saw in the meetup, I have some specials going. If you sign up for my newsletter, I promise you, you'll be amused. I'll try to be amusing and make it interesting. Anybody who signs up for the newsletter and is interested in any of my books, the book of the month, I send a free version of the PDF version if they like it to anybody who wants one. PDF's kind of handy because you could print it out yourself, and there's worksheets and all kinds of stuff in it. That's kind of a handy way to do it. Or you can send an email to cracksandconsciousness@gmail.com. Cracksandconsciousness@gmail.com. Tell me you're interested, and I'll send you the promo code, and you can pick up the ebook off Amazon. If the guy has decided not to sell it for 45 bucks, and make sure that that's not it. And then I have 2 more webinars this year. Next month I'm doing, I think I'm going to call it Reflection. It's going to be about being at a crossroads and aha moments. And then for December, I will probably do Belief and Magic. And if you're interested in that, as I said, I told Geralyn, usually I charge $450 for my classes. That's not true. I charge 30 bucks. If you're interested though, you can attend for free. I'll send you the registration link, and then you don't have to pay for the class.
And these webinars and the books actually are priceless, because the amount of information that you're getting and the ease with which you can absorb the information and learn how to use it, it's amazing. So you're getting far, far more than what you pay for with McDowell. And I would highly recommend that we all support her, because she is amazing.
Thank you very much. Again, worth the 5 bucks I paid her.
All righty.
Okay.
So this is Geralyn St Joseph. You have been my guest today at MeetUp. We are at Mystery, Mystics, and Metaphysics, and also Relationship Empowerment. I'm going to have to remember that I changed that name from Coffee with Conversation for Well-Being. We try to do these free interviews. We do have some paid things that we will advertise. You can find all of McDowell's information on the event on Mystery, Mystics, and Metaphysics on meetup.com. You want to look for us. We do things that are either hybrid or on Zoom, because I like to include everyone, especially my friends all over the world. My name is Geralyn St Joseph. I am a psychic intuitive as well as an intuitive relationship coach. My website is GeralynStJoseph.com or relationshipcoach G as in girl, SJ.com. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you next time. Mahalo. Thank you, McDowell.
Thank you.
Bye bye.